Hey, first grade. Today's story is called Declaring Independence. Our learning objectives for today are to identify and describe significant events leading to the Revolutionary War, explain the significance of the Declaration of Independence, demonstrate an understanding of the word independent, explain the significance of the Declaration of Independence by looking at a picture, and then write a caption describing and explaining the significance of the Declaration of Independence. Give me just a second. I'm going to take this mouse toy from my kitty cat. Okay. Our key vocabulary for today: approved, commander-in-chief, declaration, and independent. Approved is a verb, and it means accepted or said yes to something. My mom approved of my choice to play soccer this summer. Commander-in-chief. A commander-in-chief is the head of the entire military. The President of the United States is the commander-in-chief of the Army. Okay? And this is a picture of George Washington. He was our first president, and we're actually going to talk about him and his role as the commander-in-chief later on in this unit. Declaration is a formal announcement. The judge's declaration made it clear that the man was innocent. Independent means not controlled by any person, country, or thing. The girl's older sister lived on her own and was completely independent. In the previous read aloud, we heard about the ride of Paul Revere and the shot heard around the world. I want you to think of one word that describes Paul Revere or his ride. Brave, important. What are some other words that we can think of? Kitty, can you go somewhere else? Brave, important, patriot. That's about all I can think of for now. What did it mean when I said 1 if by land and 2 if by sea? What was I talking about? The number of lanterns that would be lit to warn the Patriots about the British coming, right? So if they were going to come by land, they would light 1 lantern. And if they were coming by sea, they were going to light 2 lanterns. How many lanterns did they end up lighting? 2, because they were coming by sea. Who were the redcoats? They were the people who fought for the king, right? They were the British soldiers that were sent over from the king, by the king, to the colonies. And who were the Minutemen? They were the militia, or group of people who were not trained to fight, that could get ready to fight within a minute. That's why they were called Minutemen. Okay. What was the shot heard around the world? It was the first shot in that battle, right? It was the first shot in the battle that kind of changed everything, right? It was the jump start of the Revolutionary War. And why was Paul Revere's ride important? Because without warning, the Minutemen might not have been ready, right? So today, remember our key vocabulary. We've got approved, commander-in-chief, declaration, and independent. I want you to listen carefully to find out how the colonists tried to solve the problems that were caused by the shot heard around the world. News of the shot around the world spread throughout the colonies. Once again, the colonists sent representatives to a meeting in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to discuss what had happened and to decide what to do. Do you remember what a representative is? a representative is somebody who speaks for a group of people, right? And now we're going to see if we can remember those 13 colonies, and I'll help you out. Okay? So I want you to go ahead, pause the video, and I want you to try and say all of the 13 colonies, and then when you unpause it, we'll go over them. All right, let's see how you did. We've got Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Did you get them all? Okay. The representatives at the Second Continental Congress were divided in their feelings about the breakaway from Britain and becoming a completely independent nation. When we say independent nation, we mean that they wouldn't be controlled by the British, okay? But several more small battles in the Massachusetts colony convinced them that they needed an army and someone to serve as commander. General George Washington seemed to be the perfect choice to lead the army. He had fought to protect the colonies before, and he knew how the British fought. Dressed in his military uniform at the Continental Congress, he was respected by everyone and was easily elected as the commander-in-chief of the Continental Army. Washington set off to join troops from across the colonies in Massachusetts, ready to meet the British in battle. Meanwhile, the Continental Congress continued to meet in Philadelphia. Among the representatives was a man named Benjamin Franklin. Franklin, who was born in the colony of Massachusetts and then lived in the colony of Pennsylvania, had actually moved to London, England for a few years. He had gone there to speak out in Parliament against the unfair taxing of the American colonies and the fact that the Americans had no say in Parliament. So remember that the Americans, well, the colonists, they didn't have any representatives in Parliament, even though they still had to pay that tax money. So Ben Franklin went to Parliament and spoke as their representative anyway. Benjamin Franklin was very good at arguing, and he was able to get the British to remove some of their taxes on the colonies. Benjamin Franklin had many British friends in London, but after the Boston Tea Party, an angry British Parliament began to distrust and dislike him. So they started to not like him because he was from the air. He was from, well, not from, but he was representing the people who kind of wasted Parliament's money. And so, in 1775, Franklin decided that it was just time to return home, arriving in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, just in time for the second meeting of the Continental Congress. The other representatives were delighted to have someone there who had spent so much time on the other side of the ocean. He could help them decide what to do. The Continental Congress decided it was time to announce to Parliament and to the British King that the colonies no longer wanted to be a part of Great Britain. They wanted to declare themselves a free and independent nation. An official declaration would have to be written so that Parliament and the King would take them seriously. Who would write this important Declaration of Independence? The members of the Continental Congress considered different people. Among those mentioned for the job was Thomas Jefferson, a 32-year-old representative from Virginia and one of the youngest men there. Jefferson had not been able to attend the First Continental Congress, but the representatives were all familiar with his powerful writing. Jefferson was elected to be its author. So Thomas Jefferson is going to be the one who writes it. Thomas Jefferson went back to the rooms he was renting in Philadelphia, got out some paper, and scratched his head. He dipped his pen in ink and started writing. Sometimes he stopped and crossed out some words, then went on. He knew a lot of important people were going to read this, so he had to make it good. Every morning for 17 days, he got up at dawn and got to work, writing and rewriting to make sure that it was his best work. Hey, he is doing our plan, plan, draft, edit, and rewrite process just like we do that in first grade. The Continental Congress liked Thomas Jefferson's work. Benjamin Franklin, among the others, changed a word or two here and there, but most of the words remained those of young Jefferson. So it was pretty much all him. On July 4th, 1776, the Declaration of Independence was approved by a vote of the Continental Congress. It was sent to a printing shop that very night. Riders headed out across the countryside with copies. In town squares all over the colonies, people gathered to hear Thomas Jefferson's words read out loud. One part is still read again and again today. I want you to listen to a part of our Declaration of Independence, and then I will explain to you what it means. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those words mean that nobody is born any better than anyone else, and that all people all over the world have equal rights, such as the right to live, the right to liberty, which means freedom, and the right to be happy. We still celebrate this important event every 4th of July. You could call it the birthday of the United States. So the 4th of July is a holiday that we are all familiar with, and it is now a national holiday to celebrate the Declaration of Independence and declaring freedom from Great Britain. Okay, time for comprehension questions. Okay. So what did the Declaration of Independence do? It was our official announcement to the British that we wanted to be our own nation and that we were no longer going to be ruled by Britain. Who was the representative who went to Great Britain, who was very good at arguing and got the British to remove some of the taxes that they had put on the colonies? What was his name? Benjamin Franklin. What important decisions were made at the Second Continental Congress? There were a few. So let's start with this guy. This is George Washington. What did they decide about him? He was going to be the commander-in-chief, right? He was qualified, meaning he had the experience, he knew what he was doing, so they decided that he would be a great person to be in charge of their military. What about this guy? We just talked about him. This is Benjamin Franklin, right? And he helped decide that we should become our own nation, right? And then what happened? They wrote, well, more specifically, Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, which, again, was our official announcement to Britain that we were no longer going to be ruled by them. Why was Thomas Jefferson chosen to be the author? Because he was an excellent writer. How do you think the colonists felt when they first heard about the Declaration of Independence? How do you think they felt when they found out that they were no longer going to be under British rule? Maybe happy, excited, maybe a little worried about, can we do this? Do we know what we're doing? Okay, there could be mixed feelings because remember, these are people's opinions and not everybody has the same opinion. All right, now I want you to look at our picture here. What do we celebrate each 4th of July? Our independence, the signing of the Declaration of Independence, or the United States birthday. What is something that happens on the 4th of July to celebrate our nation's birthday? Look at that picture. Use it to help you. Fireworks. Okay. Do you ever hear fireworks on the 4th of July? I know I do. And sometimes you can see them as long as the weather's nice. Quinn, my puppy dog, she hates fireworks. She gets really scared. Alrighty. Ooh. When we heard the words from the Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. What does that mean? It means that all people are equal and have the right to live and be free, and they have the right to pursue what they believe will make them happy. Time for our word work. In the read aloud you heard, the representatives of the Second Continental Congress were divided in their feelings about breaking away from Great Britain and becoming a completely independent nation. Say the word independent with me. Independent. Can you mouse voice it? Independent. Can you clap it out? Independent. That's got a lot of syllables. How many does it have? Independent. 4 syllables. Independent means not controlled by others. The opposite of independent is dependent. Okay? An independent does things for themselves, but a dependent person relies on somebody else to do it for them. I'm going to name a task. If it is something that you can do by yourself, I want you to say, I am independent when I do that. If it's something that you need help with, I want you to say, I am dependent when I do that. And remember, these answers might not be the same as the answers that I am going to give. It's just if you can do it on your own without help, you're independent. And if you need some help, you're dependent. Tying your shoes. I am independent because I can tie my shoes on my own. What about washing your clothes? I am independent on that. But when I was in 1st grade, I was dependent. My mama had to wash my clothes when I was in 1st grade. What about fixing your breakfast? I feel like some of you could probably do this, especially like cereal or Pop-Tarts or something like that. I am independent with that task. Reading a book. Most of you guys have gotten pretty good at reading, so you could say that you're independent at that task. What about getting dressed? I am independent at that task. Okie doke. So, let's see. There was one more thing that I wanted to say to you really quick, but I didn't have a slide for that. So, one of our learning objectives is to look at a picture and talk about the significance or the importance of the Declaration of Independence. So you're going to have a picture. It's going to be this picture, okay? And I want you to think about what's happening in this picture. Who are some of the people that are in this picture? And I want you to look at what's in the middle of the picture. What are they holding? What's on the desk? What do you see in the background? I see some British flags. Okay, so I want you to look at all of the different things. Do they look happy, sad, serious, silly? And I want you to think about what's happening in this picture, okay? And you are going to write a caption that tells me what's happening in this picture. Okay, remember, captions are 1 to 3 sentences that tell us what's happening in a picture. They normally include who is there, when it's happening, what is going on, okay? So that is part of your assignment today. Okay, and you will do that as soon as this video is over. So let's make sure we hit all of our learning targets. Did we identify and describe significant events leading to the Revolutionary War? Yes, we did. We talked about Paul Revere's ride. Okay. Did we explain the significance of the Declaration of Independence? Did we talk about why it was important that we declared our independence? Yep. Did we demonstrate an understanding for the word independent? Absolutely. And then here in just a minute, you are going to explain the significance of the Declaration of Independence by looking at a picture and writing a caption. Okay? I know you guys are going to do awesome, and I can't wait to see your captions. Bye.